What's our brand meaning? What do we stand for as a company? Right? So we try and figure out, do you want to be the no fees unless we win guys? Do you want to be the big check guys? Do you want to be we're the most active in the community gals? Do you want to be the we fight the insurance companies law firm? We're the best in court law firm. One thing I've learned, it doesn't matter which one you pick, because I've tested different options, different landing pages. What matters is that you're consistent and you pick one and you stick with it. And everywhere you're going to have your brand message, you're going to be consistent, because that's how you fight Morgan to Morgan. You can't win on dollars, but you can win on local presence, having the right message that resonates with your customers, your staff, your past customers, and then delivering that consistently in your marketplace. Here's a great example by Amanda Demanda. She's an attorney in Miami who even changed her last name to Demanda, which means like legal demand or lawsuit, or fighting a lawsuit in Spanish. She actually changed her name to create a brand that stood out. She uses these purple and pink colors. She's developed a brand kit, their logo, how to use the logo, what they stand for as a brand. And she delivers that consistently in everything she does. Look at all of her social media. Look at her on stage. She's very consistent with her branding and her brand message. Every single impression is consistently delivering a brand message. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's live stream event. I'm really excited about this one because this month we are going to do the 10 golden rules of online marketing. And this is kind of like the presentation that started it all for me. I'm going to tell you the story of how we got started and 22 years ago, how this all came about. And the cool thing about this presentation is we're also going to do a legal version of it. And we're also going to cover the hot trends. What's working today? What's moving the needle for marketing companies? What's moving the needle for law firms on their internet marketing? Without further ado, let me share my screen here. Get the slide showing. So my name is Jay Berkowitz. My company's 10 Golden Rules, and I'm the author of the 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing. And today we're going to talk about the law firm edition. So I wrote the 10 Golden Rules over 22 years ago, and we're going to talk about what are still rules, what still matters, what's changed, if anything, and what the environment looks like today. We're going to share real case studies from our clients, from law firms. And this case study is amazing. We made one simple change to the website, and we increased signed cases over 100% in one of the markets. So this some amazing little tricks we're going to share with you today. I'm going to share with you the single most important software every law firm should have today. And we're going to talk about the biggest change that's happened in Google as well, and how you can take advantage of it. We're going to go through a couple case studies. I like to call them the hockey stick. I'm originally from Winnipeg, Canada. More about that in a minute. But we've got a number of real case studies where we've got these hockey stick shaped business results, and we'll get into that as well. So we'll talk about what's changed, a bunch of success stories, case studies, and golden rule number 10 is lead the trends. So that's where we're going to talk about what are the newest things that are working the best today. We're going to talk about SEO and PPC and local service ads, social media strategies. And if I can just take 1 minute, I'm going to tell you my backstory, how it all came about. I come from an amazing little city in Canada called Winnipeg, Canada. And it's even more amazing today when I tell this story, because way back when I was a junior account manager for the Winnipeg Jets account, the hockey team in Winnipeg. And the Jets came to us and they said, we want to do this thing in the playoffs where one night the fans wear blue, and the next night they wear red, and the next night they wear white. And we said that would be way too confusing. And those were the team colors, red, white, and blue. That we've just got to simplify it. Everybody wear white. Everybody wear white tonight. And so I was on the front page of the Winnipeg Sun with some of the Winnipeg Jets employees the day before the first big game, and the whole thing took off. As a matter of fact, this is my career coming full circle. because when I searched whiteout Winnipeg Jets to show you a picture, there's actually a Google AI overview, the Google artificial intelligence search result explaining this massive marketing success story that became everybody wearing white at playoff games in Winnipeg. And last night at the playoff game, everybody was wearing white, and they now have huge street parties. And so this was one of the greatest marketing success stories of my career. And I'm super excited. I got to include this every time I present. The Winnipeg Jets actually finished #1 in the entire league, and we're up 2-0 in our series. And hopefully we're on to playoff success. So if you're watching this sometime in the future, you'll know I'd be really happy if the Winnipeg Jets had a great run in the playoffs. So I grew up in Winnipeg. I had this great marketing experience. My first client at the agency was McDonald's restaurants, even before I worked on the Winnipeg Jets. And then I went on to be the director of marketing for McDonald's Canada, working in Toronto, selling some of the most delicious, high-fat foods in the entire world. And I went from selling Big Mac and French fries to working at eDiets.com. And I was very thankful. eDiets sponsored me into the United States, and I've become an American citizen. But we had this incredible experience where we were one of the top 5 largest advertisers by spend in the entire world back in 2002. And we were spending $40 million advertising on AOL, MSN, and Yahoo with banners. This is the early days of internet where we used to do banner ads when you went and checked your email on AOL, and you would see a banner ad. And then when you went to AOL Finance, you'd see a banner ad, and AOL Entertainment, you'd see our banner ad. And we were bringing 100,000 people a day to this website, eDiets.com, spending $40 million to generate $60 million in revenue. But I was super lucky because these were the early days. And like I said, we were one of the top 5 largest advertisers in the world on the internet. And so we were doing all kinds of testing. I was doing a new banner ad every week to learn, what do people click on? What do people respond to in the online environment? And when they came to this website, we would have different offers and different funnels and different testing. We were doing A/B testing every single day. There was not one version of the eDiets website. We were always testing different programs for a week to see what worked. And then we were always adapting what didn't work. So with this incredible experience that I had very early on in the early days, I actually wrote the 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing. Now, why did I do that? I always give credit to this guy, Jeff Sabar. Jeff became a good friend of mine. And he was a journalist that wrote for the South Florida Business Journal and for one of the newspapers down here. And he did a presentation at the American Marketing Association. And it was the first time I'd ever heard of personal branding. And he referenced this article on Fast Company called The Brand Called You. And this was a new concept. Like nobody ever talked about creating your personal brand, developing your own social media. Like social media really didn't exist back then, right? So this was like a new concept. And what he said was, think of yourself like the brand manager of your own brand called you. And what you want to do is when's the last time you refreshed your branding? If you think of this as representative like a packaged goods brand, when's the last time you updated your resume to achieve the goals that you want to achieve? And so I said to myself, what's the positioning for Jay Berkowitz, the brand? And I said, I had this tremendous experience where I worked on McDonald's, I worked on Coca-Cola, I worked on strategic, large Fortune 500 brands, both agency side and client side. And now I had this incredible digital experience. I also worked at Sprint, getting people their first websites. And I worked at eDiets, where we did hardcore $40 million a year worth of advertising and marketing. And so I came up with this concept of the 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing. And I was asked to speak at the Direct Marketing Association. And I wrote this presentation, and I spoke at this conference at the Direct Marketing Association. And I worked on nothing else in my spare time for 6 weeks in between getting booked to speak and speaking. And I created the first 10 Golden Rules website and the draft of the book and the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, 5 or 6 people came up to me and they said they wanted to hire me as a consultant. And basically, I've been doing the same thing for the last 22 years. I talk about internet marketing. Here we are today, or here you are sometime in the future watching our popular YouTube channel. And I talk about internet marketing, and then folks say, hey, Jay, can you help me out? Can you take a look at our marketing? Or what would you do for our website? So basically, my business was formed that first day at that first presentation at 10 Golden Rules. And there's one person that I always want to say another big thank you to. And her name was Sherry Maxwell McConaughey. And unfortunately, we've lost Sherry. She had a terrible health mix up 4 or 5 years ago, but she was a beautiful soul. And Sherry came up to me and she said, our family has a Halloween store. Could you help us with our internet marketing? And we were able to build that up to $6 million in revenue in the first couple of years. And they were our first client at 10 Golden Rules. So God bless Sherry. And thank you so much for giving me that first inspiration that I could help people with their internet marketing. So today, 10 Golden Rules is an internet marketing agency, and we help clients with their marketing. But in the last 5 years, we've decided to specialize in working with law firms. So we only do internet marketing for law firms today, and that's our specialty. And we've become really good at it because that's what we focus on, and that's what we do all day, every day. These 2 books became Amazon bestsellers, and I'm working on my new book. We're trying to get it out the door, called Advanced Internet Marketing for Law Firms, coming out this year. So without further ado, that's the backstory. And here's the 10 Golden Rules. And what we've done is we've revisited it and updated it with lots of examples on best practices and new things you can do for your law firm marketing. So golden rule number 1 from day 1, still today, is there are no rules. And it's like a tongue-in-cheek rule, but the reason for this rule is that when I worked for Coca-Cola and McDonald's, we had like marketing rules because we didn't know exactly what worked. So we followed the rules. And there were some rules like don't have more than 5 or 6 words on a billboard, because when someone's on the highway and they're zipping by, you can only have so many words. And we didn't know definitively that worked, but we followed the rules. The other one was we had focus groups, and we'd show people like a layout of an ad, or we'd show them a concept board for a TV commercial. And we'd ask regular consumers to envision, if this was a commercial, would it get you to go to McDonald's to eat more salads? Or with this new flavor of Coca-Cola, would you go buy more Coca-Cola? And so we just generally followed the rules. Like you would ask consumers things in focus groups, and it seemed to work more often than not. So we followed the rules. But I was always a little frustrated. And believe me, the franchisees at McDonald's and the bottler at Coca-Cola was even more frustrated that we didn't really know, like when we did advertising for McDonald's, did we need to do TV, radio, and billboards? Or could we cut out the billboards, or could we cut out the radio and save some money? And we would do tests in markets and we would get results. The one thing I can tell you for sure is advertising works. Like when we launched a new campaign on Thursday at 6 p.m., and we always started on Thursday at 6 p.m. because we'd have a big weekend. Say we had a new Happy Meal toy, we would be mobbed by like Friday after school, because the word got out, there's a new Happy Meal toy, and it worked like crazy. But we didn't know exactly what worked. But the one theory I had is that like 1 + 1 = 3. If someone saw a billboard and they heard a radio ad in the morning and the kids were in the car, like that would click in, and then they'd be like, oh, we're going to go to McDonald's. But it seemed to have a multiplicity effect. But definitely 1 + 1 = 3. But again, we couldn't tell exactly what worked precisely to the penny. But the beauty of the digital world was now we had much more precision. So we didn't apply general rules, we applied math. So here's an example of one of the first projects we ever did at 10 Golden Rules. And we worked with a great company, great friends, called LifeScript. And this was a vitamin company that did customized vitamins based on a survey you would take online. So this banner on the left was the best banner when I met LifeScript. This was the best performing banner that they had. And it got about 1% click-through rate. So think back, way back to the old days when this was internet marketing. You would run banners on AOL, Yahoo, and MSN, and people would click and they would come to your website, and then you could try and get them to take action. So these were new banners that we developed. And I always like people to take a guess. So if you don't mind, in the chat, put in either exercise, donuts, nurse, or why vitamins? And which one do you think was the winner? I'll open up the chat here, chat over here. So pick the one that you think was the winner. Was it exercise, donuts, nurse, or why vitamins? And people have guessed all kinds of different things over the years. But the winner was actually this woman asking the question, why do you want vitamins? And the moral of the story is that testing is the winner, because we thought, okay, this attractive woman who's maybe multi-race, she's pretty, she was not cut off. That's very important in banners. We asked a question that was engaging. We had these radio buttons. Google doesn't let you do that anymore. We had another link, another call to action. We had a button that looked like a button that was clickable. There was a lot of reasons why this banner worked, but we thought, okay, we've got the magic. We'll take this model and we'll put it in all the other banner sizes, and we'll put it in emails, and we'll put it in testing, and we'll put it on the website. And of course, it worked like crazy, right? No, it didn't. What we learned was that testing was the magic, right? I'm going to go back, like testing all kinds of different banners in all kinds of different sizes and finding out what worked, and then doing a little bit more of what worked and testing it and retesting it. That was what worked. So we didn't follow rules. We followed the numbers. Here's a recent case study from a law firm, my friend Jeff McDonald. And here's his law firm, his website before. And I said, we made one pretty simple change to the website. And that was, we took the form off the homepage. And so many people are coming to me today. Morgan & Morgan has the form on their homepage. We have to put the form on the homepage. Guess what? Morgan & Morgan is one of the top search keywords in the world. People are actually looking for Morgan & Morgan. When they go to Morgan & Morgan, they're ready to sign up with Morgan & Morgan. But for the rest of us, phone calls work a lot better than forms. If you're a law firm, and hopefully most of the people listening to this are, or any kind of business, think of the difference between when someone fills out a form on your website and you try and call them back, or if they call your firm and you pick up the phone calls, convert way better than form fills. So what we did is we made that one simple change to the new website. We changed the branding and the coloring and stuff too. But we went from 467 phone calls to 1,290 phone calls in the same time period. Look at the skyrocket number of phone calls and leads, like the overall leads improved. And one market was up 103% in signed cases. The other market was up 47% in signed cases with just that one simple change. So what's the moral of the story here? We want to test. You want to continually test. Follow your best instincts for what you think is going to work better. Test it and validate it with very precise numbers. Another phrase I love, you can measure your return on investment, your ROI, to the penny. And that's what I loved of digital marketing versus internet marketing, right? Because here we have a number of different campaigns for one of our clients, and we know exactly how much we spent. So the auto accident campaign, the slip and fall campaign, and we know how many conversions we got. And conversions, I'm going to talk about this a lot. Calls, number one, we want calls. They generally convert higher than form fills. Number two, we want chats. And we'll talk about chat on the website. And number three, we want form fills. Okay. So calls, chats, and forms. So this campaign, we spent $26,000, got 130 leads, conversions, Google term conversion, not signed clients. We'll talk about that separately, but these are what Google calls conversions. And the overall cost per conversion was $202. But we can find out to the penny, like the slip and fall campaign got leads for $52. The auto accident campaign, $225. The workers' comp, $238. And then we're going to test within the same data we can get for every single keyword, every single ad, every single landing page. We're going to follow the numbers, right? The return on investment is measurable literally to the penny in these types of campaigns. Again, I talked about testing and innovation, adding chat to the website. I'd like to spend a minute on this. It's so important. We still meet a lot of lawyers and other companies that don't have chat on your website. This is the Intaker chatbot. We've got it on our website. And people say, I never use the chat. That doesn't matter, because take Jay's word for it and test it. 15 to 20% of people are going to use the chat, but 15 to 20% more than if you didn't have chat. Why is that? Some people are never going to call you when they come to your website. Trust me, they're never going to call you because they're doing research for their aunt or their husband or their girlfriend, right? Or they're at work, or their kids are sitting there playing a game and they're in the family room. They're not going to call and talk about that accident or the divorce or the bankruptcy, right? They're just never going to call because they're doing the research for someone else or they're in a place where they can't make a call. But there's a high likelihood they chat. And by the way, they're not going to fill out the form on your website either because it's their aunt's case. It's not their case. So we've got to test chat and then we can get very precise data. So again, here's a client that got 177 calls, 44 of those converted, 25%. So the average conversion on this instance is 24% of the calls became signed clients. Okay. Clients retained versus phone calls. The chats, 9% became signed clients. But these are 42 more clients. Maybe some of these people chatted instead of called, but I would argue there's probably 30 more retained clients out of 473. So there's another 3, 4, 5% that wouldn't have happened if they didn't have chat. And then the forms, okay, only 5% of people who filled out a form became a signed client because you know why? Because when you call them, they don't necessarily answer the phone. So we're tracking everything very precisely and to the penny, and you have to do that in this competitive environment. Here's how we're using technology to track and measure. When someone fills out a form on your website, we want to improve your performance, okay? So we developed a software called TGR Boomerang, and it's like this Australian toy over my shoulder. The boomerang, you throw it out and it comes back and you can catch it. That's how Boomerang works. So if somebody fills out a form on your website, our software immediately sends a text to your intake team, and they can call them right away. And you've got to call them right away. Because if someone fills out a form on your website and you check your email 2 hours later and find the form and call them, they probably already hired another firm. They probably already talked to 3 other firms. So we're using technology because we're learning from the numbers and we're improving the numbers. Here's another program we're using to improve the trajectory, and it's called our referral and review program. And we send out these gift boxes to people who haven't done a 5-star Google review on behalf of our client, Stuart and Stuart. And in the gift box, so this is after a client's case is resolved, they haven't done a Google review. We send them these VIP cards. We call them up. We explain, hey, you've got to open this up. There's a gift certificate in there. There's a bunch of merchandise, and there's these VIP cards. We're going to treat your friends and family like VIPs if they ever have an injury. So we're trying to get more reviews, and then we text them the link and ask them to do a 5-star Google review. So important, right? It's all about the numbers. Golden rule number 1, there are no rules. So what I say is you got to block everything you know about traditional marketing, because it's not the rule of, oh, you should have 5 words on your banner, or you should have, or someone tells you LSAs don't work. Doesn't matter. You got to test it. You've got to do a legitimate 2-3 month market test to find out if something's working, to find out the cost per lead, and to measure the cost per conversion. So we measure precisely how many conversions, but more importantly, how many signed clients. You saw in those forms, we were tracking how many people signed up as a client. That's more important than how many keywords you rank for. And this applies for everything you do online, for Google, for website design. You saw the case studies, landing pages. We'll show you an example in a minute. Tracking your calls, chats, and forms. And innovation, like TGR Boomerang. This is an innovation. Adding the new chat feature. These are things that are improving 5, 10%, improving your results. It's so competitive today that if we can get something that improves things 10%, that's a game changer, right? You're either cutting your cost per acquisition 10%, or you're getting 10% more clients for the same investment. One thing I say is there's no bad ideas, because one thing I've learned over the years, like sometimes one time we were talking to the intake team at a firm, and they said, hey, you should try this and you should say this in your advertising. It seemed like it didn't make sense, but we tried it and it worked like crazy. So what you want to do is have a list of 10 or 15 things you're going to test in the coming year. And you want to test and verify and validate those ideas. And finally, there's one thing I added to this slide from the original slide, which is it's hard work. Like you can't just do one landing page test and you're done, or add chat, and that's the entire marketing innovation for a year. You've got to constantly have a testing calendar and do lots of great new things. And that's what changes the game. Golden rule number 2 is the internet is not television. Now, when I wrote this rule, maybe this is one that we would tweak a little bit. You couldn't stream any video on the internet, like zero. The internet was like super basic and dial up 22 years ago, 23 years ago, when I wrote the 10 golden rules. And the biggest difference when I wrote the rules was that TV commercials and TV advertising could tell a story. And this was one of the most famous TV commercials of all time. And it was called Have a Coke and a Smile. And Mean Joe Green, this famous mean defensive player on Pittsburgh, was walking out after a game. And this little kid said, "Hey, Mr. Green, have a Coke. It'll make you feel better." And he drank the Coke, and it was a classic drink shot. And then he gave the kid his shirt and he smiled, right? And then the music came on, Have a Coke and a Smile. This was telling a story. This was using music. This was using video, using sound, using emotion, right? And in the early days of the internet, when we couldn't play video, we couldn't do that. Now, this would be the one asterisk on the 10 golden rules is now we can use video. We can tell stories. We can use commercials on the internet. But back in the day, we had to rely on the tools of the internet. But one of the things that was applicable 22 years ago, very applicable today, is eDiets. Don Peppers and Martha Rogers wrote a bunch of great books called One-to-One Marketing. And the lessons we learned are still applicable today. You want to identify, differentiate, interact, and customize everything you do on the internet. And a great example is still Amazon. This is an old screenshot, but it basically works the same today. Every time Jay Berkowitz goes to Amazon, there's special deals and special offers, and they're suggesting books for Jay Berkowitz. And this is an old screenshot, but it basically looks the same today. When I go on there, there's a bunch of books about internet marketing and a bunch of books about lawyers and lawyer marketing. And those are the things Amazon's recommending to me. Oh, and there's probably some Winnipeg Jets hats because they're the first place team. And I've bought a lot of Winnipeg Jets merchandise. But the message here, identify who are your best customers. How can I differentiate my marketing to target them? How can I interact with them differently? And how can I customize the relationship? Now, I mentioned direct marketing a little bit. And when I wrote the 10 golden rules and when I worked at Sprint and eDiets, I was lucky enough that I had attended a great training course on direct marketing, the old-fashioned direct mail testing. And a lot of the principles that we learned in direct mail, we applied in internet. And those rules I've been teaching for 22 years in the 10 golden rules, right? So one of the things we learned in direct mail was A/B testing. So imagine this is one test and this is one test. And in the old days, it would have been, we would test a blue envelope versus a yellow envelope. And then we'd wait 3 months for the data to come back in. And how many people took advantage of our offer that got the blue envelope? Like how many opened it up and looked what's inside? And how many took advantage of the yellow envelope? And we would test different letters and different copy and different offers and different response mechanisms, right? But it was very slow and it took 3 months to get the data back. And it was great because you would get the data. But the beauty of the internet and why I loved it when it came along and moved my whole career on the online was because of the quickness of it, that we could do A/B testing very quickly. So this is one of our clients. They're a tax attorney. And this was the old landing page. And this was the new landing page. And we see the results here. The first variant with no bulleted list was what we called it. And then this was like a bulleted list, 3 easy steps. This one was getting 1% conversion rate. This one got 8% conversion rate. The software was 100% confident that it was 581% better than the original. So we call it A/B testing because B beat A. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try and beat B. And there's a new champion and the old champion gets thrown out. And so now we're going to test B versus C and B versus D and until we beat B, and then we've got a new champion. So B, we made a couple tweaks to B. We got it up to 9.5% conversions, meaning almost 10% of the people who saw that landing page would call us or fill out the form or chat or whatever. And then we did version E. We just called it new design, but I think it had the orange call buttons and this blue. The phone number popped a little bit better here. And we were able to get to almost 14% conversion rate. So again, we apply the strategies, A/B testing from direct mail. We do it very quickly, we measure it very precisely, and we get the results. Now, I didn't tell you guys, I didn't give you any warning, but the bad news is there's a math test involved in the 10 golden rules. Now, the good news is you can just do it for fun here. There's nothing relying on it, but every single employee at 10 golden rules that we've hired over the last 10 years has done this exact same math test. And we do it today on Zoom. So feel free to pull out a pen, pull out a calculator. And what I want you to do is I want you to calculate the cost per lead using this example of 1 month of advertising. So the way it goes when I'm interviewing for a new strategist right now, and I'm giving out this test as I have again for 10 years. So in 1 month, we spent $2,500 on Google. We got 150 leads. Forget the sales. It's the same calculation. So whether they fill out a form and it's a lead, or whether they buy something on your website and it's a sale, it's the same thing. But if it's a law firm, and that's our example today, we spent $2,500 on Google ads. 150 people either called, chatted, or filled out a form. So we got 150 leads. So what I want you to figure out is what's the cost per lead? And then on Yahoo and Bing, I want you to, same thing, we spent $1,500. We got 65 leads. And on Facebook, we spent $2,000, got 108 leads. Now, if you're watching this sometime in the future, I want you to pause the video and do the exercise, because this is really good to test your mind and see if you're qualified to work at 10 golden rules. And I want you to answer everything in this column and then fill in all the totals on the bottom. And I'm going to delay here for 1 minute, and you guys are going to do your homework, and then we're going to come back and see if anybody can get it right. I don't know if you guys can hear this, but I'm playing the Jeopardy music in the background. Now, if you're going to fill out the answers, you can put your answers in the chat, or I think we have a Q&A too. You can put it in the Q&A. We never know if the audio comes through in the Zoom. Okay, so that's enough time, and hopefully you're going to fill it out, and someone's going to take a crack at it, and hopefully this is the result you got. Now, the mistake a lot of people make is they add up the cost per lead or cost per sale. But what's the moral of the story here? On Google, we spent $2,500. We got 150 leads, and the cost per lead was $17. On Yahoo, we only got 65 leads, and it cost a lot more for each lead. On Facebook, we had the lowest cost per lead, right? Because you want as many leads as possible for the least amount of money. Our average was $15 cost per lead. So the next question I ask when we do this exercise is I say, what would you do in month 2? So a lot of people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, how would you reallocate the spend so that you get the most number of leads and we still retain some of the testing? And a lot of people say, I'd put all the money in Facebook because I'd get way more leads. And I said, we forgot about the part about retaining some of the learning, some of the testing, because we might have had keywords in Google that got leads for $3, and some of the keywords were $100. The average was $17. So we're going to retain some of the testing. We're going to keep some money in Google, maybe take $1,000 of Yahoo Bing and put it into Facebook, and maybe 500 of the Google money into Facebook. And in the next month, assuming the percentages stay the same, we're going to get a lot more leads, and we're going to lower the overall cost per lead, cost per sale. Now you see why I asked this question in all 10 Golden Rules interviews, and you all can use that question as well. But that's the marketing math. The final thing we learned, and is still true today, that I apply in a lot of our client thinking, is the Pareto principle. And that's the 80-20 rule. And Wilfredo Pareto was an economist in the early 1900s in Italy. And he was analyzing the wealth in his town or his county in Italy. And what he found was that 20% of the families owned 80% of the wealth. And then when he dug a little further and started looking at businesses and different mechanics, he found out that 80% of the revenue for most businesses came from 20% of the clients. And that's true today in almost every single business that I've talked to. And the only exception is the internet seems to be like a magnifier. So sometimes 5% of your customers will generate 95% of your revenue. And then there's a few outliers. So we always want to try and figure out in internet business and every business, who are our best clients? And then how can we apply that? For example, my second customer was Moniker, and they were a domain registry. And when we did the 80-20 analysis, we found out that 80% of the revenue was coming from 20% of the clients. And those clients owned lots and lots of domains. In the early days, it was really surprising when someone owned 50 or 100 or 200 domains. And then we dug a little deeper. We found out those folks were website builders, they were marketing agencies, they were affiliate marketers. And then we put all the resources of the company to focus on those industries, to go to those conferences, to make our product better for those types of people with multiple domains, because that's where the money was. And then we became specialists in people who were large domain holders. So you want to figure out the Pareto principle in your business. One of the cool things we can do today is something called custom audiences. And so what you can do is you can upload your email list to Facebook, to Google, to most of the LinkedIn. And these are all the people on Facebook. These are all the people on your email list. And then there's an intersection there where Facebook's going to recognize, or LinkedIn's going to recognize, who are all my prospective customers and how can I target more people who look like this? And then you can tell Facebook through their algorithms, create a lookalike audience, and I want you to advertise to more people who look like my customers using the Pareto principle. So golden rule number 2, the internet is not television. A common mistake is to use a television strategy, to think that you can use emotion and tell stories, right? And to be honest, that's the one change in the golden rules today. You can use video and you can use it very powerfully, but it's probably going to be shorter, right? It's not going to be 60-second commercials. You're going to have shorter 20, 30-second clips or even 10 seconds on the TikToks of the world. But video should definitely be a part of your strategy. We'll talk more about that in a minute. IDIC from Don Peppers and Martha Rogers. Identify, differentiate, interact, customize. How can I find out who are my best customers? Who are my best past customers if you're a personal injury attorney? Then I'm going to differentiate how I'm going to treat those folks. I'm going to interact with them. I'm going to customize my relationship with them. So maybe we're going to send them the VIP kits that I talked about earlier. We're going to have a VIP party. We're going to invite all of our best customers once a quarter to a party where we're going to do it in a buffet or do it at a pizza place, have food, have drinks, give out our books, give out our merchandise, and sit people down and ask them to do a 5-star Google review, right? Direct marketing. So we learn from direct marketing that we're going to identify our control. We're going to do A/B testing, and then we're going to test again, where if A beats B, we're going to do AC. And then if C beats A and B, we're going to probably go reconfirm. We're going to run another test with C versus B and C versus A. If C is still the champion, then we're going to do C versus D. We're going to use marketing math. The most important metric you should know is your cost per conversion and your cost per signed case. So that's why we do the internet marketing test, the marketing math test at 10 Golden Rules. And that's the most important thing that every law firm should know. And frankly, every internet business should know. How much does it cost me to get a lead? How much does it cost me to get a signed client versus my overall spend in my different campaigns? The Pareto principle, figure out your 80-20 rule. What are the commonalities of the 10 or 20% of people who make up the 80% of your best customers? And we can do that with custom audiences on the different social media. Golden rule number 3 is create a UVP, a unique value proposition. And again, this is a term I coined. It's different from the traditional marketing term called USP. A USP is your unique selling proposition. And we'll talk about that a little bit in branding. That's, hey, we're the law firm that gets the biggest checks. We're the law firm that cares the most. We're the law firm that fights the insurance companies the best. That's your unique selling proposition. That's what differentiates you from all of your competitors. A UVP, a unique value proposition, is something on your website that's unique about your offering that's going to get a higher percentage of people to take an action on your website. So something we came up with at eDiets was the lose 10 pounds by December 31st, start with a free diet profile. And we had hundreds of thousands of people take a free diet profile. And I'm going to tell you a little secret. There is no such thing as a free diet profile. It was something we made up and we changed it all the time. But basically, it was a plan to achieve your goals by a certain time period. And we figured out that 6 weeks was a good time period for 10 pounds. And it was a good offer that people could buy into and enough people would click. So it became our marketing messaging. But this free diet profile was basically, you'd tell us your height, your weight, your age, any medical conditions, maybe the types of foods you want to eat. And then we'd give you a plan to achieve your goals by either the date you had in mind. Let's say you got asked to be in your girlfriend's wedding, or you booked a vacation, or your summer was coming up and you had a diet goal by a certain date. We'd give you a plan to achieve that goal. But the method to the madness here, the UVP, was that we want a higher percentage of people to start engaging with our website. So this was a great premise, right? Start with a free diet profile. The first one we ever did at 10 Golden Rules. So I left eDiets and I started working with Annie's Costumes Extreme Halloween with Sherry McConaughey. We said, we're going to do a straight contest. In those days, it was a simple, easy UVP. So win a plasma flat screen TV. And this is now, it's 22 years ago, right? That was a big deal, a plasma flat screen TV. And those big boys cost about $10,000, but it was the most beautiful TV of its day. So we said, click here to take our scary Halloween survey and be entered in a drawing to win a plasma flat screen TV. Now, when they clicked on that, we asked them to take a survey and tell us which costumes they thought were the hottest costumes for the season. And then we used that to create a bunch of lists that were suggestive for moms and dads. And what happened a lot of time, like back in the days, Harry Potter was like really hot and fairies and princesses were hot for girls. And so a lot of times, like mom would be coming to the website to buy Harry Potter for her son, but she had no idea what to get for her daughter. So we used our survey to say, these are the top 20 hottest costumes this year based on our survey data. And so now we had another UVP on the website, another unique value proposition. Because if you didn't know what to get your kids, or you didn't know what to wear to that adult party, we had a suggestive list based on our survey data. And then we took the survey data and sent out a press release, because now we had proprietary data from thousands of surveys. And we said, these are the hottest costumes in the United States for this upcoming Halloween. The day after this survey was the single largest sales day in the history of the company. And that spilled out for about a week, where people clicked on whatever it was, October 14th, before Halloween on the 31st. And they bought tons and tons of costumes. It's a record sales day for the company. We got the entire back page of the USA Today. And if you go back to 2000 and what was that, 2004? Guess what? We all used to read the newspapers back then, and that used to really move the needle on digital marketing. On 10 Golden Rules, we actually did some research, and we used click tracking research. And the number one place people went on the 10 Golden Rules website was the 10 Golden Rules page. People wanted to read the 10 Golden Rules. I thought people would go to the product page and or the business page and find out what we do, or the case studies. No, the number one page was 10 Golden Rules. So we put a download of a free ebook for the 10 Golden Rules, and we would get people's names and information. But the good news today is you don't have to do that anymore, because everybody who downloaded it, we could use remarketing banners to target them. Here's a great example of that. My friends at Cooper Hurley have the Virginia Car Accidents and Injuries Best Book. And we created the first book that they ever wrote. They have a bunch of them now at Cooper Hurley. And you can use remarketing, as I said, so people can download that book on different websites as they're surfing around and getting news and information. Another buddy of mine, Brian Moran, created a video as his UVP, as his offer on his Facebook page. So get our free video to find out how to do this kind of marketing. Another handbook for Stewart and Stewart. So a UVP is a free offer to get higher engagement on your website. It could be an ebook, or it could be a contest, or it could be a calculator, right? It doesn't have to be one different kind of thing, but come up with something that would be what my friend Jeff Walker calls an irresistible bribe. So it's a bribe, like I want you to give me your information to enter a contest, or I want you to give me your email to get my free ebook. And it's irresistible. Like, you make it something that seems so valuable that everybody wants to do it. Again, it could be a case calculator. How much is my case worth? A free ebook, a free software trial, contests. Okay. So develop and test your own UVPs. But here's one clue I'll give you. In the personal injury space, you actually don't want to lead with the free handbook. You want to lead with the free consultation, because on a personal injury page, you don't want them to download your handbook and wait to get it in the email and read it. You want them to call you immediately, because if they download your handbook and they call another firm, you missed out on a chance to close a case. Golden rule number 4. If you build it, they won't just come. Do you remember the old days? And this was very common back in 2003, 2004. Lots of websites were under construction, or today, a lot of times the bar is spinning, the ball is spinning or whatever, because the website's loading. And we all just hit the back button now, right? So you can't just build a great website and expect people to just show up. That's really the moral of the story, right? You need to push, pull, and drag people to your website. So this is where I say, if you build it, they won't just come. You've got to use all the best marketing strategies to get people to your website. And we talk about that as a funnel in the marketing industry. So we want to use Google, we want to use SEO, local service ads, social media, email, banners, feeds, YouTube channels, and podcasts, and things like that. And the goal is to get people to your website. Now, something I've added in the 22 years is you really want to get people to your mobile website, especially in the personal injury. Like 70% or 60% of your traffic and 70% of your clients are going to come from visits to your mobile website. So you've got to make sure your mobile website is fast, easy to use, and reflective of your branding, as good as your regular website. These little mini websites are representative of links, backlinks for SEO. We'll talk a little bit more about that. The test tube, lots of testing. Of course, we talked about that. Here's our ABC testing on landing pages. And then if you get people's email addresses, you should have a follow-on series that's going to get them to re-engage if they didn't sign up the first time. Add them to your newsletter, and then these little boxes are representative of those retargeting banners, like I showed you on the news site, where people can click and come back over to your website. By the way, if you want to put any questions in the chat or the Q&A, we'll take some questions near the end. So golden rule number 4, if you build it, they won't just come. A classic mistake that killed a lot of the dot-coms was they didn't push, pull, and drive people to the website. They'd raise $1 million. They spend $1 million building the website, where they should have built a website on the cheap and spent the $1 million on advertising and marketing. Use pay-per-click, search engine marketing, search engine optimization. We call it the ABCs of SEO. Your architecture, your website's got to be fast. You've got to have lots of backlinks, other sites linking to your site, and C is content. And by the way, for all of these topics, if you want to go deep on any of them and you like this kind of concept, this kind of training, we have webinars on the 10 Golden Rules YouTube channel on literally the ABCs of SEO. There's a whole 1-hour webinar on our YouTube channel where you can get information. Local service ads. We've got a couple webinars on how to optimize for Google Screen local service ads. You can use partner marketing and integrated marketing. PR is really good, where basically you put everything into the mix, right? You've got your community marketing, your partner marketing for personal injury. That would be referring attorneys, referring chiropractors, referring MRI clinics, things like that. And so you want to build your community, build your partnerships, and connect everything through your social media, talk about everything you're doing in the community, connect your marketing, all the improvements we talked about earlier, lots of testing in your advertising and marketing. Golden rule number 5, subscription models survive. I talked about LifeScript earlier, and in LifeScript, we had a thing called a free vitamin profile. So when you went to the website, you put in your height, your weight, your age, your medical conditions. Does this sound familiar? Very similar strategy to what we did at eDiets. And we built a multi-million person email list where people were actually subscribed to that email list. And then the company actually became more of a newsletter company, made more money from their publishing business than they did from their vitamin business. Because they found out that lots of people would take that free vitamin profile and they wanted to learn about health and wellness and vitamins and nutrition, diet, and they became a really big publishing business. Subscription models survive. Remember, this one's going back, and some people aren't even going to remember. But Blockbuster videos, we all used to go to the video store, pick out our videos, rent 2 or 3 VHSs or Betamaxes for the weekend at Blockbuster. And then Netflix came along and they said, we're going to make it easier. You can watch as many movies as you want. And we used to get the DVDs in the mail. And you could, every time you put one in the mailbox, you could get the next one on your list would come in a couple of days. And so they moved from the in-person model to the subscription model and literally put Blockbuster out of business. But Netflix was smart enough that they put themselves out of business and they got in the streaming business instead of the DVD business. And they were prevented themselves from getting upended by a startup who would do streaming. And interesting now, they're really a studio. They do so much of their own great content that they're staying ahead of the other studios to maintain their subscriptions. But the moral of the story here is that from, I don't know, 15 years ago, 16, 17 years ago, I've had a Netflix subscription. I started with DVDs, then I got the streaming. Now I've got the upgraded streaming with the new studio content that they put out. The subscription is the secret. The simplest thing you want to be super conscious of is get people to subscribe. Get them on your email list. If you're a law firm or a digital marketing agency, or even the local barbecue joint, these guys are great. I stay subscribed to them just because they're smart with their marketing, right? Like before the start of the football season, I get the kickoff special. Before the start of Super Bowl, I get a Super Bowl special. And they're just very smart with their email marketing. Every time we send out the 10 Golden Rules newsletter, we get tons of opportunities, right? Like once a month, this is our conference, by the way, 10 Golden Rules, TGR Live. If you haven't heard about that, it's amazing. Check it out. We'll be back next March. But we're talking about our events. We're talking about, here's that website case study. And we're just staying top of mind once a month, summarizing the things we put on our blog, summarizing the things we're doing, talking about the upcoming webinar, talking about last month's webinar, and giving everyone a download. But every single time I send out the newsletter, someone calls me up and says, hey, Jay, I've been thinking of redoing my website. Or, hey, Jay, can I interview you for my podcast? But every time I send it out, I get opportunity. The super important thing for law firms, I always tell the story. Unfortunately, I was in a car accident 12 or 13 years ago. Then I was in another car accident. I got rear-ended again 6 or 7 years after the first accident. I couldn't remember the name of my lawyer from 6 or 7 years before that. Why? I wasn't on his email list. I wasn't on his Christmas card list. I'm Jewish. He could have sent me a holiday card. I didn't get a birthday card from the firm. So it's very important that you think of your subscriptions, and every month, at a minimum, you send out an e-newsletter. Even better, print it, send it out, print it. It's going to stand out. There's very little mail today. Send out the birthday cards. This is awesome, guys. It's a great opportunity. And every subscribe, every like on Facebook, every social media subscription is an opportunity for you to tell your story, to stay top of mind for those referring, the past customers, the referring attorneys. Even Google reviews. Think of the importance. Every Google review is like a modern subscription, if you will, where people are saying, hey, I like these guys. I trust these guys. Golden rule number 6, remember the 4 Ps. Now, most of us who went to business school took a marketing course, and the 4 Ps, product, place, price, and promotion. So I always like to share this. Think of your website as if you're a product manager in the old days. Like I was a product manager in Coca-Cola and I was responsible for Coca-Cola and Sprite and all the flavors, like the oranges and the test. We did OK Soda was like a test product. We had a root beer product, right? So that's a product manager. At Google, the product managers are in charge of web search, mobile, YouTube, right? Geo, maps, there'd be a product manager. So think of your website like you're the product manager. What are you in charge, assigned to different people to be in charge of different things? Here's a great assignment. If you're big marketing, if you have a marketing department, you should have a testing calendar. Someone's in charge of the testing calendar. You should have landing page testing. Someone's in charge of that. New innovations. Someone's in charge of that. Okay. Or maybe your marketing manager's in charge of all these products. Okay. Product, place, price, promotion. So promotion. So on the internet, typically we're going to charge less than we charge in a retail store. We're going to have things like free shipping and things like that. So you want to think what I'm going to do differently on the internet that I wouldn't do. What's more important, right? Price. Again, typically price is less on the internet. And there's even an app that you can scan in a store and see if it costs less on Amazon. And then you can literally, while you're in the store, while you're showrooming, you can buy that product on your phone. You don't have to carry it home. You can get it shipped to you at home. And finally, place, product, price, place, promotion. On the internet, I would argue that the most important place, we used to say in retail, location, the most important location is coming up on a Google search for car accident attorneys near me or divorce lawyers near me, right? So you can use pay-per-click, local service ads, and Google Maps. You've got to make sure you optimize your Google Maps. Golden rule number 7, trust is golden. So this is a great example. My friend Brendan Burchard, he's got a little app that you can get for free from Facebook, and it shows everybody who likes the High Performance Academy. So I'm going to see a bunch of my friends who like his product and service. That's going to build trust. The way we do that on law firms is we get all these trust signals, Google reviews, things like that are going to build trust for your website and for your marketing. Golden rule number 8 is use the right tactic. I told the story earlier. I snuck ahead of myself at Moniker, where we figured out the 80-20 rule, who were our best customers. One of the things that didn't work, Moniker wanted me to do pay per click. Their target cost per acquisition to get someone to register a domain was $7 because the cost per year of registering a domain was about $7 or $8. And the problem with pay per click was it was about $50 for a search term like domain name, internet website name. The Yahoo and GoDaddy, and I'm going back 21, 22 years. Yahoo and GoDaddy were spending $50 a click that far back to get a name. And Moniker, their target cost per acquisition was $7. A click was $50. There was no way to get those opportunities at $7. So what I figured out is if it costs $7 to get a domain, I'm going to give the domains away for free. And we started giving the domains away at conferences. Come to our booth. We had to spin a wheel. You could win prizes or you could win a free domain, because we knew at the right conferences where the webmasters and the affiliates were, we knew that if we got those guys to try, our system worked better for the big domainers, and we would get them converted over to moniker.com. So my marketing strategy that worked, pay-per-click, didn't work. I figured the right tactic was give away a domain to the right target audience and get them to use our product. And then we did other cool things, like came up with the first domain podcast and the domain auctions that would give away domains and position us at the top of the environment. Golden rule number 9, the best never rest. And the subset is the best never rest est. We've covered that in a lot of detail today. Tony Robbins, I was lucky enough to see Tony 7 or 8 times, to see Tony Robbins, a great motivational speaker. We did a lot of work in that industry running ads for Tony Robbins conferences and things like that. One of the things I learned from him is the term CANI, constant and never ending improvement. And that's a term he talks about for personal development, right? If you're not constantly getting healthier and going to the gym and getting fitter, you're going in the other direction, and it's not pretty. Trust me, been there. How about personal development? If you're not getting a little bit smarter as an individual and as a company and developing new products and bringing new things to the marketplace, you're falling behind because your competitors are getting better. So you've got to have a program of constant and never ending improvement for your website. So we're going to do different things like constantly testing, constant never ending improvement. Sometimes just changing your website, just change the picture. It's going to be fresh and you're going to get more conversions. Are they different people? Not necessarily, or they're not even the same people, but just somehow that Google rewards you for updating your website, right? You want to do lots of testing for customer acceptance. And then finally, site credibility. Stanford University did a study and they said, your designer look has to be professional looking. 46% said that gives you credibility. Your information design and structure, it has to be well organized. It's got to be focused. Don't fill it up with too much crap. And that's the lesson we learned when we focused only on lawyers. And our website says we do internet marketing for law firms, and our webinars say we do the law firm edition. By being focused, people realize, okay, I want someone who only knows about doing marketing for lawyers and specializes in working with personal injury lawyers. And finally, the company motive. You can't seem too commercial on the internet, right? You've got to seem like you've got some free stuff, because that's just like the way the internet environment works. And finally, golden rule number 10, lead the trends. The conception of this rule was when I was at eDiets, this thing came along called the pop-up. A lot of us used to access the internet through AOL, Yahoo, and MSN. I talked about that earlier. So if you got your email on AOL, you would typically log into AOL, you'd get free email, you'd put in your name and your password, and you'd get your email, and then you'd go searching around, you'd go to people and search and channels and fitness and sports scores and check your stocks, right? And we did all that within this closed community of either AOL, MSN, or Yahoo. So we did our advertising, and then all of a sudden this thing appeared out of nowhere called the pop-up. And you'd be on one of the regular websites and something else would pop up and you'd be like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to check that out. And in the early days of the pop-ups, we got 30% click-through rates. So literally 30% of people who saw a banner pop up, they'd be like, oh, I'll try that. We were like hamsters. We're like, oh, great, check that out. So the good news was in the early days of pop-ups, when you did them as an advertiser, you got 30% click-through rate. Remember our banners early on in the campaign, we got 1% click-through rate. What happened very quickly is we started getting 10 pop-ups and 8 pop-ups and 20 pop-ups. Because they worked so well, the advertisers were using them like crazy, and the people who fed the pop-ups were making a lot of money. But as consumers, we started going crazy. Get rid of these pop-ups. And we told our internet service providers and our security people, I do not want pop-ups anymore at all. And pop-ups went from being great, getting 30% click-through rate, to being like evil, and people hated people who did pop-ups. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is when something new comes along in advertising and marketing, we've got to capture that leading edge trend right when it comes out. Because if you wanted to take advantage of the advertising and marketing and pop-ups, you had a 2 to 3 month window where you got 30% click-through rate, then 20% click-through rate, then 10% click-through rate, and you had a chance to make some bank. But after 6 months, basically they were gone. People hated them, and the internet service providers were blocking them anyways. So what are the modern examples today? Here's one of the hottest leading edge trends that I've been talking about for the past year. So a year ago, when you did a Google search for Tom Brady, you would see pictures of Tom Brady or videos of Tom Brady. But if you looked in Google's Labs, and there's a login area that's free, you can just find it by searching Google Labs. When I logged into Google Labs, I saw what they were doing with their generative experimental AI. And you're probably recognizing this because now We're seeing this very commonly, and Google's calling it AI overviews. This is Google's AI, artificial intelligence search result. And basically what Google's doing is they're compiling the information on 2 or 3 websites to answer our questions. How do I choose a car accident attorney? So they still have a paid ad. But what they did is they compiled the results from 3 or 4 of the top people also ask questions results, and they gave us the result. So they're giving you a result. So now you don't even have to go to a website anymore. And it's like a Chat GPT result. Why is Google doing this? They had to do it. They want you to, they still want to make money, right? They still want us to click on ads and go to websites. And they still want to give us free SEO results, right? Because we don't always want to go to paid clicks. But Google's got to answer our questions. And if Google doesn't answer them as well as Chat GPT, we're going to start using Chat GPT. So this was an existential threat to Google's existence. Easy for me to say, right? So now if you click show more, the cool thing is Google's actually showing their homework. So that what they say is, here's the 3 or 4 websites that we used to compile this answer. And this is the first result we saw for one of our clients. Congratulations, Jeff McDonald and Associates. And Chat GPT started doing the same thing. This is my friend Spencer Ehrenfeld. That's the first link I saw for a personal injury lawyer. A lot of these are still Forbes and super lawyers, Avo, things like that. But why is this significant? Let's go back here. This is a link to a website. So now Google's giving you the answer, but they're showing their homework, and I can get traffic. So Jeff McDonald has started getting a lot of traffic from Chat GPT and from AI overviews. And how did we do it? Chat GPT is even showing maps now. But the good news is they're showing lots of folks who came up in the maps. So think of it a little differently, right? Like now we started asking questions, and Google and ChatGPT are answering those questions. And the reason we ask questions is because we figured out with Siri, we can ask a question, and Google got really good at answering questions in the form of a sentence, right? So what we've been doing proactively to optimize for these question and answers is we're answering questions on video, and we're answering questions on our websites. So this is Jeff McDonald, who's getting a ton of traffic from this, and he's answering the question, what happens if I get hit by an Uber or Lyft? We put the video on YouTube, we search engine optimize it because Google owns YouTube, the algorithms are connected. Then the YouTube video goes on Jeff's website with a blog post explaining what's in the video. So what we've done is we've search engine optimized for a question in the form of a sentence instead of a keyword, right? Like in the old days, we would be focused on car accident lawyer, bike accident attorney. But now we're targeting Q&As because we search differently. We ask Siri questions. We ask Google Voice questions. We ask Alexa questions, right? And Google's showing the AI overviews results. ChatGPT is showing results with links to our website. So how do you search engine optimize your website to take advantage of these AI overviews? You cover topics comprehensively with detailed explanations and real examples. You have bulleted lists, the kind of things that come up in the AI overviews. You become an authority signal. So get linked to in press releases and journalistic stories that talk about the question and answers you're talking about. Have a frequently asked questions page on your website. And everybody has one with 4 answers. Go and write 400 answers that answer questions. Become part of the community. This is built into the algorithm, right? If you're popular locally, it's more effective. So that's a section on how do you get ranked in the AI overviews. The next leading trend, and I told you there's a software that every law firm should have today, and it's called Case Status or Hona, 2 different companies. And basically, this is an app that solves the biggest complaint that customers have about law firms. The number one complaint that comes into the bar associations, my lawyer doesn't get back to me. I don't know what's happening with my case. So what you do is you get the Case Status or the Hona application. Now you get your customer to install it on their phone. Everybody's happy with apps these days, right? Customers know how to use apps for banking, for ordering an Uber, for ordering Uber Eats, right? Everybody's happy to get their data, to get their updates from an app. So instead of the number one complaint being, I don't know the status of my case, now they've got an app. They can find out exactly what's going on with their case. Every time you enter something into your case management, it pushes this information out to your prospects. And we highly recommend Case Status or HONA to solve the number one bar complaint and make happy customers. And here's an even bigger deal that makes Jay very happy as your digital agency. If you have happy clients, you get more referrals, you get more reviews, right? Because if at the end of a case, somebody's, oh my God, like these guys kept me in the loop. I knew exactly what was going on. They were so easy to get updates from, as opposed to they were frustrated with their lawyer. He never told them the status of their case. They didn't know if he had the MRI. They didn't know when they're supposed to see the doctor. Now everything is updated, and it also uses AI to answer the client's questions. It drafts the question in AI, and then you can press yes and send it to the client, or you can tweak it a little bit and send it back to the client. The next one was something that I learned by searching for my clients all over the country. And this is my friend and client, Jeff Phillips. And here's the Morgan website. And I started seeing Morgan & Morgan coming up in local service ads all across the country. And I said to myself, you can't pay the most money to get in local service ads. If you tell Google, I want to spend $1 million a week in local service ads, that actually sets the algorithm off, the artificial intelligence. It doesn't work any better. So why was Morgan showing up in Arizona, in Philadelphia, in South Florida? Like, he seemed to show up the most of anyone. Again, you can't necessarily pay more. You have to follow our secret algorithm for LSAs. I'll talk about that in a minute. So Morgan's doing a good job with that. But what I came up with is brand is a big part of the LSA algorithm. Because if you recognize John Morgan and you don't recognize Jeff Phillips, you're more likely to click on John Morgan. Now, a lot of people in Arizona would recognize Jeff Phillips, but a lot of people for my small clients would have no idea who he is. So Morgan gets more clicks as a percentage. What does that mean? It means Google makes more money. And at the end of the day, Google's going to try and optimize every piece of this real estate to maximize their revenue, because obviously they're a commercial company. So branding's important. Now, the bad news, we don't have $400 million like John Morgan spends on advertising. But the good news is we can still go do a good job with our brand and make the most out of our brand message. As a matter of fact, branding's even a part of Google's new search engine algorithms. This is a data leak that revealed a lot of Google's search engine algorithms. And the big takeaway from people who analyze it said that brand matters more than anything else. So what our opportunity is, and we do this exercise with our clients, is we figure out what's our brand message. I talked about that a little bit earlier. What's our brand meaning? What do we stand for as a company, right? So we try and figure out, do you want to be the no fees unless we win guys? Do you want to be the big check guys? Do you want to be we're the most active in the community gals? Do you want to be we fight the insurance companies law firm? Do you want to be the best? We're the best in court law firm. It doesn't matter. One thing I've learned, it doesn't matter which one you pick, because I've tested different options, different landing pages. What matters is that you're consistent and you pick one and you stick with it. And everywhere you're going to have your brand message, you're going to be consistent, because that's how you fight Morgan & Morgan. You can't win on dollars, but you can win on local presence, having the right message that resonates with your customers, your staff, your past customers, and then delivering that consistently in your marketplace. Here's a great example by Amanda Demanda. She's an attorney in Miami who even changed her last name to Demanda, which means like legal demand or lawsuit, or fighting a lawsuit in Spanish. She actually changed her name to create a brand that stood out. She uses these purple and pink colors. She's developed a brand kit, their logo, how to use the logo, what they stand for as a brand. And she delivers that consistently in everything she does. Look at all of her social media. Look at her on stage. She's very consistent with her branding and her brand message. She's getting every single impression is consistently delivering a brand message. Another example, Jen Gore, she's a real character out of Atlanta. Same thing. She's figured out her brand message. She's figured out her coloring. She's super consistent in all her social media. And even when you see her on stage or see her out in public, she's got her green and black coloring and she's on brand. Another great example, John Barry's a veteran. His dad's a veteran. His brother's a veteran. And everything they do is consistent with that brand message. Their website talks about being veterans. They do a lot of VA work. Even if they pick a charity that they're going to participate in, it benefits veterans. So that consistency goes a long way in your local marketing and your brand marketing. The next thought, and we're getting to the end here, if you're grinding through with me, we're almost there, okay? We can see the finish line, is run your business like a business. And this is a huge trend that I'm seeing. And all the law firms that succeed are using a business operating system. Our best clients are using a business operating system. The top performers, when we're at a conference, and all the guys who are in the top 10% are using a system like EOS. Gino Wickman, who wrote this great book called Traction, I always keep it right here at my side. If you have 50 people doing everything 50 different ways, that leads to increased complexity and mass chaos in your firm. So basically what you want to do is use an operating system like Traction, or you could do Mastering the Rockefeller Habits or Scaling Up from Vern Harnish, or The Great Game of Business, Jack Stack. But the message here is you've got to have a business system. And we're using EOS, Gino Wickman's system, and it's been fantastic for our company because now we have a leadership team that follows a protocol. We had our L10 meeting this morning, same agenda every week. All the issues that come up in the company during the week are added to the agenda for the L10 meeting. We have a scorecard we look at every week on how the firm's performing. We're tracking everything. And guess what gets measured, gets attention, and improves. So I highly recommend considering one of these programs where you're going to have structured weekly meetings. You're going to have a leadership team. You're going to have targets and scorecards. Other benefits, get in an active mastermind. The firms that are in masterminds are like twice or 5 times more successful than the firms aren't in a mastermind. How about a business coach? Like I've got a tennis coach. I've got a workout coach. I've got a business coach. It's made a huge difference in my business. A financial coach. We got a financial coach now. Matter of fact, he spoke at our conference. In fairness, Greg Crabtree is not my coach, but this book, Simple Numbers, Greg spoke at TGR Live, and we work with his company, the Simple Numbers Company, to do financial coaching for everyone in our mastermind. It's amazing. It's made a huge difference. Calendarize everything, have a calendar, and finally have an integrator, which is the classic Traction EOS system, is there's a visionary and an integrator in your business. A couple more, and I promise we'll wrap up. Local service ads. Okay, is it the hottest thing? Is it the hottest trend? Not anymore. It's about 3 years old now for lawyers. It's still pretty important. If you're in a smaller market or you're in a less competitive niche than personal injury, this is still a killer strategy to get you a lot of leads and cases. But I'd still say, even for personal injury, you want to get as many calls as you can from Google Screen. You want to try and get right to the top of page of Google. So right now, Google's showing 2 on a desktop, 3 on a phone. And these are the most important opportunities still today on Google. You get a click to call, phone calls convert at about 25%. So you should be converting 1 in 4, 1 in 5 of these clicks. And with this program, you only pay for the calls or clicks, right? Super powerful. You're only paying for calls or clicks. Over here in the pay-per-click, they're clicking and going to your website, and only 5% of people who go to your website are going to call you. 100% of the people who click the LSA ads are going to call you. So it's much more effective if you can get in the top 3. So of course you're saying, how do I get these great results like Jay's clients? And I'm at the top of the LSAs. We have our secret algorithm. And here's the 5 or 6 things you need to do. Number one, you've got to answer the phone within 15 seconds. No more missed phone calls. It's like a bomb's going off. You have to make sure, and everybody tells me, oh, we don't miss any calls. And then as soon as we get approved, the LSA start tracking the times they miss phone calls. You can't go to a phone tree or an answering machine. You've got to take those LSA calls. They got to go directly to a live person who picks up within 1 or 2 rings. Because not only is Google tracking it for the algorithm, so the people who answer the phone more quickly are going to the top of the list here, but they're even showing you the results sometimes. So my friend David Eltringham typically replies in a few minutes. This other firm typically replies in a day, because there's also message leads that are like texts. So you can get calls or texts in this program. So obviously Google's tracking it and they're showing the results sometimes. You're going to set bidding to maximize leads. That's the best current strategy. And then you've got to get in the back end of Google. And if I click on this, we're hiding the name, obviously. But if I click on this, I can listen to the recording and then I can put notes in the system. So you've got to give Google immediate feedback. This was a good lead, it's completed or booked, or this was a bad lead, we're archiving it. And then you put detailed notes with keywords and explain why it wasn't a good lead. Oh, this guy was trying to sell me some kind of software or something. It had nothing to do with a client and prospect for my practice area. You need to get 1 to 2 new reviews per week. So that's why we're so bullish on that VIP kit that we send out on behalf of our clients. Or you can use a product like Bird Eye, and you should have an incentive program for your paralegals to get reviews. And the final thought here is the multi-location strategy. Morgan has a huge head office in Orlando. Why would they have 6 locations in Orlando? It's very simple. That's 6 chances for Google Maps, 6 chances for local service ads. So many people are getting multiple locations, but you have to have the traffic to be able to get enough Google reviews. So if you're a small firm and you're only doing 5 or 10 cases a month, I wouldn't recommend a second location. But if you're getting 30, 40, 50 cases solved every month, then you can split those Google reviews and try and get 5 or 10 in each location. Last point on this, I did a whole webinar called Help, I've Fallen and I Can't Get Back Up. If you used to get lots of Google reviews, Google LSAs, coming up in the Google LSAs, and then now you're not showing up, we have a couple strategies we've used to reset your LSAs, and we'll be happy to talk to you and see if we can help with that. So we made it. I can now wrap up the 10 golden rules of online marketing legal edition. Golden rule number 1 is there are no rules. So in the old days on TV, we used to follow the rules. The TV commercial would get 375 GRPs. That was this mythical number of the percentage of the target audience multiplied by how many times they saw the ad. And that was called the GRP. And we target like 375 GRPs, which was like 30% of the target audience saw the ad 7 times or whatever. Golden rule number 2, the internet is not television. So you can't just play a commercial and develop emotion, right? The internet is much more like direct mail, where we do A/B testing, we measure everything to the penny. Golden rule number 3, create a UVP, a unique value proposition. That's something on your website, like a calculator, like a download, like some type of interactive device, a video they watch, where you get a higher percentage of people engaging with your website because conversion is so low. Like I mentioned a minute ago, if you get people to call you, that's 100% conversion. You've got a 100% chance to talk to them. If they click on a pay-per-click, they go to your website, it might only get 5% of the people to call you. Now, if you have a free calculator on the website or a free ebook, you might get 7 or 10% to engage with you. Create a UVP, a unique value proposition on your website. And for personal injury lawyers, it should just be calls for a free consultation because you want to focus on the phone calls, not the ebooks. If you build it, they won't just come. Again, one exception to the rule. If you build it with great SEO, they will come. But if not, you've got to build a great website, but you've got to save budget and strategy to use multiple tactics to bring people to your website, to get those leads, to get those conversions. Golden rule number 5, subscription models survive. So you want to get as many people on your email list as possible, send out a monthly at a minimum, a monthly e-newsletter, but you also want subscribers to your social media. You want Google reviews. You want Facebook likes. Those are all versions of modern subscriptions that are going to build your business. Golden rule number 6, remember the 4 Ps: product, place, price, promotion. Very important is your place, your location, optimizing your Google local, your Google Maps. Golden rule number 7, trust is golden. Put those trust indicators on your website. Use the right tactic. So if you're in personal injury, Google, people don't go to Facebook to scroll through to look for a personal injury lawyer, right? We go to Facebook to scroll through for entertainment. And then you can show them ads. In particular, if you're a family attorney or bankruptcy attorney, you can target people based on things that they would have in their psychographics or demographics. But for personal injury, you got to use the tactics around Google, because they're going to go to Google to search for personal injury lawyer. The best never rest, test. And finally, lead the trends. We talked about some leading trends like Google's AI overviews and how you get ranked there, case status and HONA to improve your customer satisfaction, and the Google local service ads. So with that, I forgot, this is a long presentation. We're right at an hour and a half. If you want to get our ebook, and this includes the Google Screened LSA algorithm, strategies for the Google AI overviews, and Google Maps optimization, you can scan here. It's also got the ABCs of SEO that I didn't go into detail. So I'll leave this up for a minute. And the last thing I'll mention, if you have any questions about your digital marketing, we'll do a free audit of your website. We'll show you your biggest opportunities, how you rank versus your competitors, and we'll do that free of charge. So just contact us at 10goldenrules.com, or you can find me on social media. I'm Jay Berkowitz almost everywhere you go. And we'll do this free audit. As I mentioned, we'll show you how you rank in Google Maps, your website speed, how you're tracking. We call this falling off the Google cliff. These guys had 1,600 keywords. Now they only have 557 ranking on the first 2 pages of Google. And last thing, if you think this type of content would be good for your bar association or any legal groups, if you're a member of the trial lawyers group in your state, I'd be happy to come and speak to your group or do it on a webinar. And you can use this link. This is screwed up, but it's calendly.com/J-10goldenrules/strategy-session. And you can book a strategy session with me. It's a lot easier. Just go to 10goldenrules.com and send us a note or do a chat, and then we'll book your free intake. So I'm pretty much out of time. So I'll do Q&A virtually. So pop me a note on LinkedIn or on 10 Golden Rules, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you guys who made it to the end for sticking to the end. I'll take one question. Michelle, and I apologize if folks are also streaming this live on LinkedIn. Michelle said, for someone starting from scratch, which golden rule would you say is most important to implement first? And I'm going to cheat and go back to the 10 golden rules. It's not like which one, it is which one to do first, but it's which one to do second and third. Golden rule number 4, you need a website. You need a home base. So I would build your website, get a Facebook page, a LinkedIn, an Insta, and then you're going to maybe create a UVP, something on your website for them to download, and then start your marketing, right? And testing and measuring everything. Do a social media program. Super easy. Do those videos we talked about. Answer people's questions. You don't even have to do video. You can just write a blog once a week and answer one of the most frequently asked questions that your prospects are asking you all the time. And that'll start building your SEO. And when people come to your website, it will answer their questions. So with that, I'm going to say thank you all very much. Amazing to do the 10 golden rules again. Lots of fun for me. And those of you who made it this far, please send me a note on LinkedIn or on 10 golden rules and just tell me what you thought. Or obviously, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on our iTunes, please give us a 5-star review and send me a shout out. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing for Law Firms podcast. Please send questions and comments to podcast@10goldenrules.com. That is podcast@TENGoldenrules.com.